I think it's CJ. CJ is like our heartbeat of this team. That's what I call him. When I see him, I say, "What's up, heartbeat?" Because he is that emotional leader. Yeah. Right? Everybody has a guy like that on the team, super vocal all day, all night, screaming, yelling, bringing that energy. He's that guy. When we lost him a couple years ago, you seen the difference. You didn't see that attitude. You ain't see that aggressiveness. You ain't see that Philadelphia football. You ain't see it.
All right, man. Shady is infamous for flip flopping on this shoulder facility, but here he's keeping it 10 toes down. CJ Garner Johnson, man, this one was a decision in Howie I trust. Don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? This is how we do, but this is how we do it. You know, like I struggled, you know, to even like come to grips with this. I'm like, bruh, I had deja vu. Like I forget a similar decision, you know, in the past. I'm like, this ain't happening, man. What the fuck are we even doing right now? My, you know, visceral, you know, guttural reaction was like, no, Howie, why are you doing this to us again, man? The guy just got fucking back, and you jettison him once again, or you let him go. You know, have we been on this road before? And yes, we have. I believe this time is different. I had to get out of my feelings and come to grips with reality and think about, you know, the future, the long term, because we saw how he make, you know, mistakes in 2018 when he re-signed a lot of guys that shouldn't have been coming off that Super Bowl victory, our first ever in franchise history in 2017. This was not that, but you know, it's something that, you know, like as an Eagles fan, it shakes you to your core because CJ Gardner Johnson is quintessential Philly, man. He's loud, he's raucous, he's cocky, he's loudmouthed, you know, he's boisterous. But he backs that shit up on the field, you know what I'm saying? Like the man's impact. You look at, you know, 2022, when we went to the Super Bowl, he's the one laying the wood out there playing, you know, with his heart out. One of the, you know, the few, the proud, the Eagles on defense playing like he wants to win this thing. You know, like the whole defense let us down. And, you know, he was one, you know, that, you know, from wire to wire, he was out there trying to, you know, get that jewelry, that accessory. And, you know, make a dude of this accessory, you know, out there, lay him out. 2023, we just didn't have that heart, that collective heart. Guys were out there playing like mercenaries, you know, like playing for themselves, you know, for their stats, their own. That's why I believe Hassan Reddick got jettisoned because, you know, he was a part of the problem, not the solution here in Philly that season. And he was an essential piece that we couldn't go without, you know, even given his production, which was crazy at the time. But CJ Garner Johnson, man, he's built different, man. He's built perfectly for Philly. You know what I'm saying? He's one of them Johns, as some people will say. But to get rid of him, you know, and just making, you know, a salary move, and not even for this year, for 2026, you know, it just hurt. It really did. It really did. And like you said, I have to look at it because I don't believe it was a locker room thing. You know, people want to come out and say CJ was one, you know, volatile presence. And yeah, he was getting kicked out of games and, you know, unwarranted, you know, barring the refs did warn him about, you know, certain things. But, you know, he got slapped in the face and then he got, you know, or mushed in the face and then he got ejected, which was crazy. But, you know, you really did see, you know, the difference on defense when he wasn't playing. And that's my whole thing. Like, you look at his impact, not just the swagger, not just the, you know, him playing with bad intentions. You know, look at him sitting down legged. You know, took that man's head off, literally. His body and his neck and his head were all going different directions. But CJ's major thing was the amount of ground he was able to cover, and in our defense, he was the ultimate, you know, chess piece back there. He could be here, there, and yes, him and Blade, him and Reed Blankenship played in tandem, in conjunction with one another, covering each other, you know, for each other. But that's gonna be hard to replace, man. And yeah, we were no longer bringing him down in the slot like we did in 2022, but we didn't need him for that. We needed him for, you know, his the amount of ground he could cover, and him being able to be, you know, multiple in his defense, and be the, you know, the perfect, you know, piece where, you know, Vic could just, you know, deploy deep half, you know, quarters, down in the box if need to be. Come rotating down from two safety look to come in and fill the gap on the in the run game. He was just so versatile, and Reed and him are, I would say, neck and neck. I would say Reed is better safety. He covers and erases mistakes, but he doesn't have CJ's speed. Like think about that play where he makes the pick off of the Isaiah Rodgers rebound. Isaiah Rodgers was running with Chase, Jamar Chase, stride for stride, which is impressive. But CJ makes it over there because he made the move. He read what was happening, and was in prime position to catch the deflection. I have concerns, because like other guys, I don't. There's few irreplaceable pieces, and I'm not saying CJ Gardner-Johnson was irreplaceable. I will say this though, you have a guy, Milton Williams. He left. We have Moro Jomo, who I believe showed. He was like top 3 behind. I think top 2 behind Chris Jones in interior pressure rate. When you even though it's a smaller sample size, but him and Chris Jones in the same sentence, that tells you his impact. He was making himself felt out there on the field, and Milton, we're not gonna pay him $100 million. So $104 million, we'll take the comp pick, 3rd or 4th next year, and then Josh Sweat, we drafted Jalix Hunt, and yeah, I get it, he's not the pass rusher that he is right now, but these two guys benefited from playing across from, on the same side of Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is the straw that stirs the drink, on the defensive line here in Philly. So, yeah, you can replace those guys. Jalix Hunt, and he's already our best, edge defender in coverage because he's a converted safety. But we don't have a guy like CJ Gardner-Johnson that can play at his level. And I agree with guys like Philly Film Room. We're going to take a step back, grade-wise, coverage-wise, because Sidney Brown is the guy that maybe steps in, and he plays even more reckless than CJ. And let's not forget CJ's down point earlier in the season when he was giving up TDs in the red zone, like handouts, like Oprah. He was like, you get a TD, you get a TD, you get a TD. You know what I'm saying? And he ain't TD Jakes, you know what I'm saying? Like, this ain't a church. Stop handing out communion, motherfucker. But, like, it's cool because he got better. The whole defense got better, and they adjusted and they corrected those problems. But, the replacements, Sidney Brown, former 3rd-round pick, and I do believe that, hey, you gotta let the kids play. You gotta, figure out what you have, as we're gonna be, diving into that later with the youth movement and free agency. But, what, bothers me is, Sidney, is he gonna be the reckless player? He's someone that we're gonna, be able to depend on, back there. And I believe he's going to take his lumps if he steps into that starting role. He has tremendous talent. Remember the 99-yard pick 6 he had on Kyler Murray in 2023. 2022, his rookie year, before he got injured. I think maybe a week before he got injured. Who's to say, if he's in training camp, what happens? And I think that's going to be the crucial step because he missed out on having that rookie to second year jump because he missed the whole offseason last year. Now, that may have, he may rebound tremendously and grow and gain Vic Fangio's trust, but that's to be seen. And there are guys like, I think Omen Warrior, I forget his name, the huge safety coming out of the draft, as well as guys like Malachi Starks. We might go after him. As well as a couple other guys that have a 2nd and 3rd round grade. There are options to be, played. And Howie hinted that it's going to get worse before it gets better as far as the roster goes. We're going to have to trust the process because we're at a stage where we're trying to, mostly shout again, Philly Film Room, hold on to our own guys rather than having to fill those holes. Pause. Fill those guys, damn. Fill those holes. I should say fill those guys out. Not safe. In free agency and make bad deals. Like, the former 49ers defensive lineman, interior lineman, Javon Kinlaw shouldn't have gotten $15 million per year, $45 million total over 3 years. He ain't that good. But desperate teams have to go through desperate measures and reach. And we're not in that stage because, we're developing our homegrown talent. That being said, we're going to have to depend on some of the younger talent. And Sidney Brown is one of those. Another guy who might be able to replace CJGJ Johnson, Tristan McCollum. See what we have in him. Yeah, he gave up that Xavier Worthy touchdown, but the guy is fast. That being said, I like the way he's developed. Can take another step. We'll see. But we might have to play some lesser guys. Losing equivalent of 4 starters in free agency. It just is what it is. This one sucks because, we still had time. And I get it. Maybe, like Philly Firm said, behind closed doors, we don't know what was going on. Maybe CJ wanted more money. Maybe he was, they were questioning his leadership in the slightest because him and Slay had it, back and forth on Twitter and whatnot. But regardless, the guy's a tremendous talent, and we're losing a lot. We're losing something. That edge that he played with, that swagger, that oomph, it can't be underestimated because we lacked it sorely in 2023, and that's what Howie said particularly. That's why we brought guys like CJ Garner just back because we love the way the mood, the attitude that he brought sans WWE, WWF to this locker room, and we're gonna miss it, because we got a guard who's in a reclamation project back, but we'll see, man. But anyways, we're gonna end the video here because the truth of the matter is that you're not even watching though, but it's all good because I love making these videos and I love talking about the freaking stinking Philadelphia Eagles. So kudos if you watch this from opener to closer, but we're gonna try to do this officially. But as always, it's fly Eagles fly and let's motherfucking go.
Like, comment, share, and subscribe if you
Thanks for watching. Check me out at Cintron, Cintron Anime, Cintron Life, or Cintron Laughs, or other social media.